Good afternoon and welcome to Fabric Frenzy. With me today, we got our great and experienced colleague within the Power Platform, data platform, and everything, Morten Søndergaard. My name is Oliver. I'm commercial responsible for our BI division in Fællermine, Denmark. And Morten, welcome to. Morten is joining us from our Funen office from Odense. So welcome, Morten. Do you read me? Perfect.
And hi to everyone watching, and thank you for having me on the Fabric Friendship broadcast.
Perfect. I think we might have a connection problem, but let's try again here. At least we can hear you, so that's the most important thing, I think. So, if you could, I don't know if you're able to share your screen, because I think that Morten would like to show us the latest update about the Microsoft Fabric, right?
Yeah, exactly. Are you not seeing my screen, or is it?
We do see your screen, so everything is good. It's not in presentation mode, but I see the slides, and it's perfectly, very beautiful.
All right, very good. So, at this broadcast, I'm gonna present the newest updates from Microsoft Fabric. And last week, Microsoft Build took place, and a lot of new announcements from Fabric was announced. The theme was pretty much a lot of AI agents, something called the agentic web, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some enhancements to Copilot, but other than that, I'm not going to touch that much into the AI part. So I'm going to present a few of the news that I think is exciting. Some of them brand new preview features, some of them are enhancements to existing features, and then we're going to deep dive into one of them. So first off, I'm going to talk about Copilot enhanced capabilities. And what I mean with this is just that now Copilot is available in almost every Fabric experience. So Copilot is already an integral part of everyday life as a developer. But the new thing is now that you can use Copilot within, for example, a notebook or a data flow, and Copilot will have your context as part of its answers. And exactly that makes your life much more easy when developing using Copilot. Then we have materialized lake view, which is a public preview feature. As of yesterday, and also I checked this morning, it was still not in preview. So everything I'm going to talk about regarding this is what I could read from Microsoft's homepage and the examples they have provided. But it looks very promising. You can define your business logic. You can define data quality constraints, rules. You can do orchestration and monitoring all in the same place, which is the materialized lake view. Then I'm gonna talk a little bit about some shortcut enhancements, and it's called shortcut transformations, where you can, in your shortcut, you can use AI to do some transformations of your data, like sentiment analysis or summarizing text documents. And you can also use the UI to turn your CSV files in the file part of your lakehouse into Delta tables without writing any code or doing anything other than creating the shortcut. And lastly, I'm gonna talk about and present a demo of the translytical task flow, as Microsoft has named it. And this enables us to do write back from Power BI and a lot of other cool features, because behind the scenes of a translytical task flow is actually also a pretty new feature called a user data function.
So with regards to this write back function from Power BI to the various sources, could you elaborate a bit on that? Is that based on our targeted budgeting, forecasting, or when would you think that would be relevant?
Yeah, definitely. It would be highly relevant in any kind of planning situations like forecasting, budgeting. If you are doing time registration or any scenario where you would need to write back to your data source. But especially, yeah, in financial planning, it would be very interesting now that we can use these translytical task flows.
Okay, that's interesting. I think it's going to be very beneficial for a lot of different customers, not only the larger ones. So interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I would like to say, or I would like to show that there's a new Fabric roadmap tool. So you can actually now go to the Fabric roadmap tool and see which new features are planned for preview and which features have already been released for trial. So I definitely encourage everybody watching to look at this. There is a lot of other new features which I'm not talking about today, but they are visible in this roadmap tool. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Copilot. So now Copilot is pretty much everywhere. And in a Fabric perspective, we can use Copilot inline in notebooks. You can use it for developing data flows. You can use it in Data Factory experience for understanding complex pipelines. And Copilot is really nice, and especially when you can use it or when it understands your context. Because one of the pains, at least for me, when I use Copilot, is that I have to explain the context for Copilot to give me a good answer. And when Copilot is already embedded or accessible, for example, in a notebook, it will have the context of your lakehouse and your columns and your data and the primary keys and all of that. And then it will be able to give you a much more qualified answer. And this helps us not lose momentum when we are coding, because we have to, give a long, elaborate writing to Copilot for it to give a qualified answer. And now the Copilot is actually available on all Fabric SKUs, not just the F64 and upwards. Everybody can try this out. But a word of caution, of course, because using Copilot does consume capacity. And if you are on a small capacity, I think you could burn your capacity quite fast, especially if you're more than one person using this feature. So you should have a clear strategy before just enabling it in the admin portal of Fabric. All right, but let's see it in action, how Copilot can help us when we are developing notebooks, data flows, pipelines, and how this context awareness actually works. So I have prepared a little demo here where I am in my notebook and I'm turning off Copilot inline completions, starting up a session. And now I'm telling Copilot to refresh its context. And then it will have my lakehouse with all the tables and all the columns in its context. And then I can start in natural language telling Copilot what I want. So here I'm just telling it to group some data from multiple tables, and it will give me a query. And it figures out on its own which columns I need, which keys it needs to do the join. I don't have to tell it that because it has it in its context. And I can fire off the query, see that it produces a somewhat reasonable result. And then I can choose to accept or discard the query. And of course, every time you use Copilot, not just in Fabric, but everywhere, you should you should sanity check the code, because sometimes it doesn't give you the exact thing you want. For example, here, it gives me a limit 10 in my select query, but I want to save everything to my lakehouse. So this query is producing a table and saving it back to my lakehouse. So we can't just take it for good every time we presented a result from Copilot. Jumping to a data flow, we can do the same thing. We can use Copilot to summarize or describe a data flow. I know for myself that especially when I am being handed a data flow that I haven't constructed myself, it can be pretty difficult to digest what is actually happening. But now you can use Copilot to do the heavy work for you, and you can also use it, for example, for documenting your solution. And this is also a new feature. You can use Copilot to create a custom column. So if you don't like writing M code, now Copilot will just do it for you. And it's all about, you know what you want to do. Maybe you don't know how to do it. So you can ask Copilot for a little bit of help. And lastly, in a data factory pipeline, again, you can use Copilot to summarize the pipeline. Could also be nice if it's a more complex pipeline than this. You can also use it to add pipeline activities, to edit pipeline activities, and just in general make your life much easier. Yeah, so this is a Copilot context awareness in Fabric in almost all Fabric experiences and artifacts. But again, word of caution, it does use capacity, so you need to be aware of that.
It's very interesting and kind of groundbreaking, so to speak. I mean, with regards to this capacity use, are you able to make some sort of an estimation before you start out? Before you start using Copilot? I mean, it could be great for, I think, a lot of customers to know more about the potential use of capacity. So, so that they won't be blocked.
There might be some calculators out there which can calculate an estimate. But other than that, I mean, the price of using Copilot is actually published on Microsoft homepage. I think it's something like per 750 words, you are priced X amount of capacity, both for the input prompt and the output response. So yeah, you might be able to estimate how this would impact your capacity.
In other words, would you, with the customer, be able to make some sort of a calculation telling the customer if their current capacity is sufficient in the future using Copilot, or how would you approach it?
Yeah, that would be possible. And if you can't make a calculation based on the price of using Copilot, you can always make a small POC or a test to see, okay, now we use Copilot for 1 day. How much of our capacity have we consumed? Is this representative of how much we're going to use it? And then take a decision based on that.
Perfect. Interesting.
Yeah. All right. Jumping to the next preview feature, the materialized lake view. So the materialized lake view lets you build a declarative data pipeline using Spark SQL. So it's pretty much like defining a view in an ordinary SQL statement. But now there's also built-in support for data quality rules. The materialized lake view comes with automatic monitoring of your view, and it also generates a report of how your view has refreshed and updated, and if there has been any violation of your data quality rules. And it's intended for orchestrating queries across your source tables and other materialized views, and essentially to make the multi-stage lakehouse architecture much less complex, because the materialized lake view can handle all the orchestration and monitoring and all of that we had to build around our business logic, so that developers can focus on business logic. And if you use the materialized lake view in all the stages in your lakehouse architecture, so you have materialized lake views all through bronze, silver, and the gold stage, then Fabric will figure out itself the dependencies between these views. So when new data is arriving, it will schedule, or it will refresh the views in the correct order. Also, the view is utilizing the Delta Lake's change data feed, so it will only update new or change data, and it will also only refresh if new data is available. Yeah, and you're able to define these data quality constraints within your view. So you can define, for example, what should happen if one of my constraints is violated. For example, if I get null values where I didn't suspect it, or negative values for a column that is not meant to have negative values. Should it drop the record? Should it just flag the record? Should it fail the update? And you get all of these results from your materialized lake view refreshes in a log, where you can see exactly which violation or which data quality constraint was violated and how many rows were processed and all of that. So it comes with a lot of features out of the box, I would say, a lot of things that we would otherwise have to code ourselves. And in the future, there will also be support for PySpark and incremental refreshes. And this is then the quality report that is automatically created for you when you use the materialized lake view. And as I said, it hasn't been released for public preview yet, at least not when I checked last time. But I'm pretty excited to try out the feature, because I think that it looks really promising. Perhaps we can set up pipelines and data platforms much easier using these materialized lake views. And especially when we also use the new shortcut transformation feature. So shortcuts in OneLake is a nice feature. So shortcuts, for those who are not aware of it, are objects in OneLake that points to other storage locations. And that can be other artifacts in OneLake, but it can also be external data locations like Azure Data Lake. And the key thing about it is that you are not copying data to OneLake, you're merely just creating a link to that data. And now with the shortcut transformations, you can also transform that data as it is, well, not being copied, but in the link between the data source and the target, right? And you can use AI to do some sentiment analysis, or you can summarize your documents and data. And you can also use the UI in the Lakehouse to create a shortcut from your table section to your file section. And then you will, Fabric will figure out, okay, you have CSV files in your file section. Would you like to convert those into Delta tables? And then it does it for you. And then every time there's a new CSV file available in your file section, they will automatically be part of the Delta table, right? So when new files arrive, your Delta table is updated. And if you have these materialized views, which are constantly looking at your Delta table, then they will also be updated when new data arrives. So this could potentially mean that you, with a very little effort, could have scheduling or orchestration of your data pipeline without even setting up triggers or schedule refreshes and stuff like that. Yeah, and you can see, again, out of the box, you can see logs of how many rows are written and any errors, warnings, etc. All right. The last thing I want to talk about and go a little bit deeper into is the translytical task flow. Because have you ever wanted to write back from Power BI to your data source? Well, yes. I hear a lot of customers asking for this functionality. The only thing they ask for more is how can we get this data in Excel? And it was actually also possible before translytical task flows to write back from Power BI to your data source. You could, for example, use a Power App, or you could buy a third-party tool which enabled this. But now we have a much more native way of doing it without having to pay Power Apps licenses or buying a third-party tool, right? And it's called translytical task flows. They use behind the scenes something called user data functions, which is also a new feature in Fabric. And these user data functions is actually what is doing the heavy lifting. We just in our reports, we're actually just creating a button that fires off this data function. And if you want to try it out, it's something you have to turn on under the preview features in your Power BI desktop. And you also have to enable user data functions in the admin portal. But let's take a look at how these translytical task flows actually work. So I am gonna go to, and I'm just checking, can you still see my screen? Can you see that I changed to, and I changed to my Fabric Frenzy workspace in Fabric?
No, we do not see anything.
You do not see that. All right,
Yeah.
2 seconds. Let me just share this window. What about now?
Yeah, perfect.
Great. All right, so I have prepared a Power BI report. And as you mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, Oliver, when I mentioned translytical task flow and write back, one of the key areas when you can use this is actually financial planning and budgeting. And in this case, we are going to do some budgeting. So in this report, we have some departments and some budgets, and we need to revise or edit those budgets and even do some commenting on each of the records. So in my report, I have two user data functions attached to buttons, and those user data functions need some input, and the input they need are the filter context from my report. So what I want to do is that I want to do some budgeting for the customer service. I want to change a budget in the budget category salaries for February, right? So now I filtered down to this exact record here in my database. Then I can choose to update the comment. So I would most likely do that after I change the budget amount, and I can choose to change the budget. So let's first change the budget amount. I'm just going to write 5,000 and click this button, submit budget. And when I click this button, it's going to fire off the user data function in the background. And yeah, it says request submitted, the action completed successfully. All right, let's also update the comment. So we can say we are getting a student worker in February. And that's why they need to increase the budget. Like that, and submit the comment. All right. And this report is actually in direct query. So if everything was working correctly, we should see that the budget amount changed and the comment changed. I did have some issues also playing with this beforehand. I suspect that it might be the SQL endpoint that is a bit slow, but it doesn't matter. We can always just go to the SQL database and see it for ourselves, right? So before I forget, so it's the customer service salaries, right? So let's just check that it actually did write back to our database. So it's updating the budget, and I'm just gonna have to find out which department key the customer service has. It's 9, right? So we can say where department key is equal to 9, and we also have the budget post is equal to, and I already forgot it. It is salaries, of course. Yeah, salaries. Right. So here you can see the amount changed to 5,000, and the comment, we're getting a student. Blah blah blah. So, yeah, and for some reason the direct query isn't working, but it is writing back to our SQL database. And what is actually enabling this is these user data function. Let me just show you quickly how it looks. It's 2 functions written in Python, and the connection to the SQL database is managed by the function itself. So I don't have to have any connection strings, any authentication keys or tokens, anything like that. It's all handled by the function itself. So I really think that this translytical task flow is going to change some things. I mean, it was possible beforehand to do write back from Power BI with some hacks, I would say, but now it's much more native, and yeah, it opens up a lot of possibilities.
That's truly amazing. I mean, with regards to the other updates, I think this translytical task flow is what surprised me the most. I would say it's very interesting. I think that the market is gonna react quite positively to this. So we are running almost out of time, Morten, and I think that your camera might be taking a day off. But I was wondering, what did you see as the most extreme new feature that has surprised you the most?
Well, I would say it's definitely this translytical task flow and the user data functions, because it's almost limitless what you can do with it, because you're actually just programming in Python, and you're not limited to just writing back to your data source. You can also incorporate approval flows, or you can do all sorts of things because you can just code it. But the cool thing is that it's now also native in Power BI to fire off these functions just using a button. So that's definitely what surprised me the most. And well, it's just something that has been cried about in the market for so long. So now we finally have a great solution for writing back.
I definitely agree. So as we are about to run out of time, Morten, I would like to thank you so much for your presentation and the demos. That was very interesting. So yeah, besides from that, I would like to say thank you to all the listeners, and yeah, have a nice evening, and thank you so much, Morten. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.